sat in the large metal chair and looked across the room at the 12 alien beings who controlled the galaxy. The meeting room was cold and dark, just like every other place the hegemony built. These aliens liked to make others feel small and afraid. The Supreme Chancellor stood up. His body was made of what looked like living crystal that glowed with blue light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like breaking glass mixed with thunder. "Human representative," he said, "we have made our decision about your species." Kept her face calm. She had been Earth's main diplomat for 15 years. She knew how to hide what she was thinking, but inside her chest, her heart was beating fast. Around the table sat the other 11 species that ruled the galaxy. There was the who looked like giant spiders made of metal, that floated in tanks of green liquid, their tentacles moving slowly. They were tall and thin, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red in the dark. Each of these species had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had destroyed entire civilizations that did not obey them. For the past 50 years, they had watched humanity spread across the stars. Knew they did not like what they saw. "Your species has become too bold," continued. "You build colonies too fast. You explore space too quickly. You ask too many questions about things that do not concern you." Nodded slowly. "We are curious by nature, Chancellor. We mean no harm to anyone." "Harm?" The representative clicked his metal claws together. "You humans act like you own the galaxy. You trade with whoever you want. You go wherever you please. You do not ask permission." "We follow all galactic laws," replied. "We have never attacked anyone. We have never taken anything that was not offered freely." "Laws," the in the tank made a sound like laughing, but it was not pleasant. "You think laws matter. We make the laws. We decide who lives and who dies." Felt something cold touch her spine. This was going exactly as Earth's leaders had predicted it would. The hegemony had finally decided that humanity was too dangerous to ignore. "We have been patient with your kind," said the leader. "But patience has limits. You humans reproduce too quickly. You learn too fast. You adapt to new worlds like a virus spreading through a healthy body." Chancellor raised one crystal hand, and the room became quiet. "The Hegemony Council has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity will withdraw from all worlds beyond your home system immediately. You will abandon all colonies. You will recall all ships. You will submit to our oversight and control." His eyebrows went up just a little. "And if we refuse?" "Then we will destroy every human ship, every human colony, and finally your home world itself." His crystal body pulsed brighter. "We have done this before to species that thought they were too important to obey. Their worlds are now empty rocks floating in space." The other aliens around the table were watching carefully. They expected her to beg. They expected her to cry or get angry or try to make deals. That's what other species had done when faced with this choice. Instead, leaned back in her chair. A small smile appeared on her lips. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a predator makes when it finally sees its prey step into a trap. "How long do we have?" she asked. 72 standard hours, announced. "After that, our fleets will move to destroy all human presence in the galaxy." Smile grew wider. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small communication device. The aliens tensed, but moved slowly and calmly. "Just need to send a message back to Earth," she said. "Let them know about your generous offer." She pressed a button on the device. A green light appeared, showing the connection was working. Looked directly into the tiny camera and spoke 2 words that would change everything. "It's time." Then she put the device away and looked back at the aliens. The smile was still on her face, and now there was something else in her eyes. Something that made even these galaxy-conquering species feel uncomfortable. "You know," said, "I've been waiting for this day for a very long time." The leader clicked his claws nervously. "Waiting for what, human?" "For you to finally show us who you really are," replied. "For 50 years we've played nice. We've followed your rules. We've been polite and diplomatic, but deep down we always knew this day would come. You speak as if you are not afraid, the gurgled from its tank. Its laugh was soft but somehow frightening. Afraid? Oh, I'm terrified. Not of you, though. I'm terrified of what my people are about to do to you. The aliens looked at each other with confusion. This was not how their threats usually worked. Other species begged for mercy. They offered tribute. They fell to their knees and promised to obey. You think you know us, continued, standing up from her chair. You think humans are weak because we prefer to talk instead of fight. You think we're harmless because we haven't conquered anyone. She walked around the table slowly, and the most powerful beings in the galaxy actually moved away from her. But here's what you never understood about humanity, said. We don't avoid war because we're bad at it. We avoid war because we're too good at it. We've been holding back for 50 years, waiting for you to give us a reason to stop. Chancellor's crystal body flickered with uncertain light. Your words are meaningless. We have 1,000 ships. We have weapons that can destroy planets. What do you have? Reached the door of the meeting room and turned back to face them one last time. The smile was gone now, replaced by something much more dangerous. You're about to find out, she said. See you in 3 days. As the door closed behind her, the most powerful council in the galaxy sat in stunned silence. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they wondered if they had just made a terrible mistake. Walked down the corridor toward her ship, finally allowing herself to feel the excitement that had been building for decades. Earth's children were finally free to show the galaxy what they could really do. The hunt was about to begin. Dr. Sarah was 3 kilometers underground when the message arrived. The facility around her was so secret that even most human governments didn't know it existed. She had been working in this place for 25 years, waiting for this exact moment. The communication device on her desk showed a green light. His voice was clear and calm. It's time. Sarah smiled and pressed a button on her control panel. Around the galaxy, hidden transmitters began sending the same message to dozens of secret locations. After 50 years of careful preparation, Operation Prometheus was finally beginning. Meanwhile, sat in her private ship as it left the hegemony station. Behind her, she could see the massive fleet gathering in space. 1,000 warships from 12 different species, all preparing to destroy humanity. The aliens thought they were bringing overwhelming force to crush a weak enemy. They had no idea what was coming. Opened a secure channel to Earth. Admiral's face appeared on her screen. He was a thin man with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. He said, "How did they react?" "Exactly as we predicted," replied. "They think we're going to beg for mercy or try to run away. They have no idea we've been preparing for this since first contact." "Good," said. "The fleet commanders are asking if we should reveal our true strength gradually or all at once." Thought for a moment. All at once. It's time they understood what humanity really is. Across the galaxy, things that had looked harmless for decades suddenly began to change. The mining platforms that humans had built around asteroids started moving. Pieces of equipment that aliens had dismissed as primitive began unfolding into complex weapons. On a small moon near the home world, what appeared to be a research station suddenly opened like a flower. Inside was a massive cannon that had been pointed at their capital city for 15 years, waiting for this moment. In the outer rim, human colonies that seemed like simple farming communities revealed underground shipyards. Thousands of workers who had pretended to be miners and farmers for their entire lives finally took off their disguises and put on military uniforms. Doctor watched the reports coming in from around the galaxy. Everything was working perfectly. For 50 years, humanity had been playing the greatest trick in galactic history. "Status report," she said into her microphone. "Sector 7 ready," came a voice from one of the hidden bases. 200 ships launching now. Sector 12 armed and targeting, another voice reported. The fleet won't know what hit them. Sector 4 confirms all sleeper agents are in position, said a third voice. We've been watching their military leaders for 30 years. We know every plan they have. Sarah nodded. The humans had learned early that the galaxy was ruled by predators, species that respected only strength and saw diplomacy as weakness. So humanity had given them exactly what they expected to see. A peaceful, expanding civilization that seemed harmless. What the aliens never realized was that humans were excellent at pretending. Every colony ship that looked like it carried families and farming equipment also held weapons and soldiers. Every trade mission that seemed to be about business was also gathering intelligence about alien military capabilities. Every human who had smiled and been friendly to alien leaders had been watching, learning, and reporting everything back to Earth. The most important discovery had come from studying the aliens themselves. Each species fought in predictable patterns. They always attacked head-on with overwhelming numbers. They relied on their superior technology. They used complex battle formations that looked impressive but had obvious weak spots. All of these tactics worked well against other alien species. But humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other in every possible way. They had learned lessons about war that no other species in the galaxy even understood. Ship entered the Sol system, and she could see the transformation beginning. What had looked like a normal star system with one inhabited planet was revealing its true nature. Hidden shipyards that had been disguised as space stations were opening to reveal fleets of warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These ships were not built for show or intimidation like alien vessels. They were built to hunt and kill efficiently. The asteroid belt was moving. Rocks that had seemed natural were actually mobile weapons platforms that had been slowly positioning themselves for decades. Robot factories that had been building mining equipment for 50 years had really been preparing for war. And Earth itself was surrounded by defensive systems that made it look like a fortress world from humanity's own science fiction stories. Admiral said as she saw the scope of what they had built, "How many ships do we actually have?" Smile was not pleasant. More than they do, much more. What the aliens had never understood was that humans were naturally suspicious. When they met the hegemony and learned how the galaxy really worked, Earth's leaders had immediately begun preparing for this war. But they had done it in secret, using humanity's greatest strength, the ability to work together toward a long-term goal. Every human colony had been both a real settlement and a military base. Every trade deal had been both economic cooperation and intelligence gathering. Every diplomatic meeting had been both an attempt at peace and preparation for war. The aliens thought humans were naive because they seemed to trust everyone. In reality, humans had been watching everything and preparing for the day when their peaceful expansion would finally threaten someone powerful enough to do something about it. "The hegemony fleet is beginning to move," reported one of its officers. 1,000 ships, just like said. "How long until they reach Earth?" asked. 18 hours at maximum speed. Looked at on the screen. "Are you ready to show them what humanity can really do?" Smile was sharp as a knife. "I've been ready for 50 years. Around the galaxy, the final pieces of humanity's plan fell into place. The species that had ruled through fear and violence were about to learn that they had awakened something far more dangerous than themselves. The humans were done pretending to be harmless. It was time for the galaxy to meet Earth's children as they really were, the most successful predator species in known history, and they had just been given permission to hunt. The greatest war in galactic history was about to begin, and the aliens had no idea they had already lost. Admiral stood on the bridge of the battleship Prometheus as the hegemony fleet appeared at the edge of the Sol system. Through the massive viewing window, he could see 1,000 alien warships approaching in perfect formation. They looked impressive and terrifying, exactly as they were meant to. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "the alien fleet is demanding our immediate surrender." Smiled coldly, "Tell them we decline." The hegemony fleet had expected to find Earth defended by perhaps 50 human ships. Instead, they found themselves looking at a star system that had been transformed into the largest fortress in galactic history. Chancellor stood on the bridge of his flagship, his crystal body flickering with confusion. The asteroid belt was moving in patterns that seemed impossible. What he had thought were mining platforms were revealing massive weapons that were already locking onto his ships. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded. His tactical officer's voice was shaking. "We count at least 3,000 combat vessels, sir, and they're still coming." "That's impossible," said. "Our intelligence shows humans have fewer than 100 military ships." "It appears our intelligence was wrong, sir." The human fleet didn't look like anything the aliens had seen before. While hegemony ships were built to look powerful and intimidating, human vessels were designed purely for function. They moved like living things, fast and deadly, with no wasted energy on appearance. Opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. His face appeared on screens across 1,000 enemy ships. "This is Admiral of the Terran Defense Force," he said calmly. "You came here to destroy humanity. We're going to give you one chance to leave peacefully." Laughed a sound like breaking crystal. "You are outnumbered, human. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Your species will be extinct within hours." "I don't think so," replied. "You see, you made a critical error. You assumed we would fight like you do." The alien fleet began their attack exactly as had predicted they would. The ships charged forward in a straight line, their weapons blazing. They formed their traditional battle formation, a complex pattern that had worked for them for thousands of years. They stayed back, preparing to use their advanced technology to destroy whatever survived the first assault. It was exactly what human war planners had been preparing for. Didn't give the order to attack, he gave the order to hunt. The human ships didn't form lines or patterns. Instead, they scattered like a pack of wolves, each ship moving independently but working together toward the same goal. The aliens found themselves trying to fight an enemy that refused to hold still. The first wave of ships hit what they thought was the human defensive line. Instead, they found empty space filled with mines that had been invisible until they got close enough to trigger them. 50 alien ships disappeared in the first 10 seconds of battle. "What happened?" demanded. "The humans are using stealth technology we've never seen before," his officer replied. "Our sensors can't track half their ships." The truth was simpler than that. Humans had studied every alien species for 50 years. They knew exactly how alien sensors worked, and they had designed their ships to be nearly invisible to them. They tried their famous battle formation, but found themselves facing an enemy that ignored all the rules of civilized warfare. Human ships appeared from above and below, attacking from angles the aliens had never considered. Their perfect formation became a death trap as human weapons found every weakness. Commander Sarah Mitchell piloted her fighter through the alien fleet like a shark through a school of fish. The aliens flew in predictable patterns, following rules and formations that had been unchanged for centuries. Humans flew like they fought on their home world, with creativity, adaptability, and a complete willingness to do whatever it took to win. "Ghost Squadron to base," she reported. "The ships can't turn fast enough to track us. We're tearing them apart." Watched the battle from his command center. 50 years of preparation were paying off perfectly. The aliens fought exactly as their computer models had predicted they would. Every strategy, every formation, Every weapon they used had been analyzed and countered long before this battle began. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 3 ships." "No surrender," replied. "They came here to commit genocide. They don't get to quit when they start losing." The second wave of alien ships tried a different approach. They moved forward with their advanced weapons, thinking their superior technology would be decisive. They discovered that human technology wasn't primitive at all. It was different. While alien weapons were designed to be impressive and overwhelming, human weapons were designed to kill efficiently. Human ships were smaller, faster, and harder to hit. When they did get hit, they kept fighting long after alien ships would have been destroyed. But the real difference was in the minds controlling the weapons. The aliens fought like they always had, using tactics that had worked against other aliens. Humans fought like a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. Captain David Torres commanded a human destroyer as it engaged a battlecruiser 10 times its size. The alien ship was more powerful, but it moved slowly and predictably. Torres used speed and cunning, hitting the enemy ship from 6 different directions before it could even figure out where he was. "That's for every human colony you plan to burn," he said as his final torpedo tore through the alien ship's hull. The hegemony fleet was falling apart. Species that had conquered the galaxy found themselves helpless against an enemy that refused to play by their rules. They had expected to fight a civilization. Instead, they were fighting a pack of predators that had been pretending to be civilized. Watched his fleet being destroyed and finally understood what had been smiling about. Humans hadn't been weak. They had been waiting. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Fall back to defensive positions." But there was nowhere to run. Human ships were everywhere, moving too fast to track, hitting too hard to stop. The asteroid belt that had looked harmless turned out to be full of weapons platforms that could destroy a ship from across the solar system. Open the communication channel again. "Chancellor, this is your second chance to surrender." "Never," snarled. "We will fight to the last ship." "No," replied. "You'll die to the last ship. There's a difference." The battle was over in 6 hours. Of the 1,000 ships that had come to destroy humanity, fewer than 100 escaped. The rest were either destroyed or captured by a human fleet that had barely taken any damage. Watched the aftermath from her ship's observation deck. Floating around her were the broken remains of the most powerful military force in the galaxy, defeated by a species they had thought was harmless. She opened a communication too. "How many casualties on our side?" 12 ships damaged, sir. 300 wounded, 17 dead." Closed her eyes. Every human life lost was precious, but the cost could have been so much higher if they hadn't prepared properly. And their losses. 900 ships destroyed. Approximately 2 million alien military personnel. The survivors are asking for mercy. Thought about all the species the hegemony had destroyed over the centuries. All the worlds they had burned just to prove their power. "No mercy," she said, "but send medical aid to the survivors. We're not them." The battle for Earth was over, but the war was just beginning. Around the galaxy, human fleets were moving toward alien home worlds. It was time for the galaxy to learn what happened when you threatened humanity's children. The hunters had become the hunted, and Earth's children were very good at hunting. 3 weeks after the battle for Earth, Chancellor sat in his command center on the hegemony capital world and watched his empire crumble. The massive screens around him showed the same terrible story repeating across the galaxy. Human fleets attacking alien worlds with surgical precision. "Status report," he demanded, his crystal body flickering with nervous energy. General, his military commander, looked up from a tactical display covered in red warning symbols. "The humans have taken the home system. Their entire fleet was destroyed. They are requesting immediate assistance. Human forces are attacking their orbital stations." How many ships do we have left? Fewer than 200 across all 12 species, sir. The humans are destroying everything faster than we can count our losses. Had ruled the galaxy for 300 years. In all that time, no enemy had ever threatened his power. Other species had fought the hegemony, but they fought like civilized beings. They attacked military targets, followed the accepted rules of war, and could be defeated using traditional tactics. Humans fought like something else entirely. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship as it approached the home world. The planet below was covered in massive industrial cities that had built weapons for galactic conquest for thousands of years. Soon, those factories would be building medical supplies and farming equipment instead. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a surrender offer from the planetary government." Terms asked: complete demilitarization, reparations for damages to human colonies, and submission to Terran authority. Considered this. They had been the most aggressive species in the hegemony. Their ships had led the attack on Earth, and their leaders had personally ordered the deaths of millions of beings across the galaxy. Counteroffer said, unconditional surrender, immediate dissolution of their military and trials for war crimes. If they refuse, we continue the bombardment. On the planet below, the leadership was learning what it felt like to be helpless. Human ships had appeared in their system without warning and destroyed their orbital defenses in minutes. Now, precise strikes were taking out military installations while leaving civilian areas untouched. It was a level of precision that should have been impossible. The humans somehow knew exactly where every weapon, every command center, every important target was located. The truth was that humans had been watching for 50 years. Every trade mission, every diplomatic meeting, every seemingly innocent cultural exchange had included people who were carefully mapping alien military capabilities. Coordinated the psychological warfare campaign from her mobile command ship. She was broadcasting across the galaxy, speaking directly to alien populations that had never heard their leaders questioned before. Citizens of the galaxy, her voice reached billions of beings. For centuries, your leaders have told you that strength comes from conquest. They have destroyed peaceful worlds to prove their power. They have made you live in fear of each other. On the home world, citizens gathered around public screens to hear something impossible, someone speaking to them as if their opinions mattered. Today that age ends, continued. The Terran Federation offers a different path, peace through strength, not conquest, cooperation instead of domination. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. The message was simple but revolutionary. The galaxy's most powerful military force was offering protection instead of demanding submission. Captain commanded a human fleet attacking the hegemony's main shipyard facility. The massive space station had built warships for 12 species for over 1,000 years. Now it would build hospitals and schools instead. Target the weapons manufacturing sections only, she ordered her gunners. Leave the civilian areas and worker housing intact. We're liberators, not conquerors. Her ships moved through the station's defenses like ghosts. Every alien weapon system had been designed to fight other alien technology. Human ships were built using completely different principles, making them nearly impossible for alien systems to target effectively. Within hours, the galaxy's largest military construction facility was under human control. The workers inside found themselves facing an occupying force that brought medical supplies and food instead of chains and punishment. The alien leaders were beginning to understand something terrifying. Humanity wasn't just defeating them militarily. They were winning the hearts and minds of alien populations that had lived under hegemony rule for generations. Dr. Sarah monitored the campaign from her underground facility on Earth. Her screens showed human forces advancing on multiple fronts, But the real victory was happening in the intercepted communications between alien leaders. "The Council is in complete panic," she reported to. "They're accusing each other of failing to prepare for human attack. They are requesting help that no one can provide. The smaller species are starting to negotiate separate surrenders." Nodded. "What about civilian casualties?" "Minimal. Our surgical strikes are working perfectly. The aliens are learning that we can destroy their military while leaving their people unharmed. It's breaking their will to fight." This was perhaps humanity's greatest weapon, the ability to separate military targets from civilian populations. For thousands of years, galactic warfare had meant total destruction. Humans introduced the concept of precise, limited warfare that achieved political goals without mass casualties. On the hegemony capital world, emergency council sessions had replaced regular governance. The representatives of 12 species argued desperately about how to respond to an enemy they didn't understand. "We should use the planet-killer weapons," suggested the representative. "Destroy their colonies before they can take more of our territory." "And then what?" demanded the leader. "They'll respond by destroying our home worlds. These humans fight like they have nothing to lose." "Because they don't," said the council member quietly. "We threaten to destroy their entire species. From their perspective, anything they do to us now is self-defense." Chancellor slammed his crystal fist on the table, creating a sound like thunder. "There must be something we can do, some way to negotiate." "With whom?" they asked. "We declared war on them. We came to their home to commit genocide. Why would they negotiate with us?" The answer came from an unexpected source, his voice over the communication system. "Because," she said, her image appearing on their screens, "we're better than you are." The alien leaders stared at her in shock. Somehow, humans had breached their most secure facility and were speaking directly to their emergency council. "How did you get this frequency?" demanded. Smiled that same dangerous smile from their first meeting. "We've been listening to everything you've said for 20 years. We know all your secrets, all your plans, all your fears." "What do you want?" the leader asked. "The same thing we've always wanted," replied. "Peace, but not the kind of peace you understand. Not the peace that comes from fear of punishment. The peace that comes from mutual respect and cooperation." "You're conquering us," they accused. "How is that different from what we do?" His expression became serious. "Watch and learn." Across the galaxy, human fleets were doing something unprecedented. After defeating alien military forces, they were providing humanitarian aid to the defeated populations. Human medical teams were treating wounded alien soldiers. Human engineers were repairing damaged civilian infrastructure. Human teachers were arriving on conquered worlds to share knowledge freely instead of keeping it secret. Human diplomats were meeting with local leaders to discuss fair governance instead of imposing military rule. For the first time in galactic history, a conquering army was making life better for the people they had defeated. The psychological impact was devastating to hegemony leadership. Their own people were starting to welcome human occupation because it meant safety, prosperity, and freedom they had never experienced under alien rule. "This is your last chance," told the council. "Surrender now and your people will be treated with dignity. Continue fighting and you'll be responsible for forcing us to take stronger measures." Looked around the table at the other alien leaders. For the first time in his long life, he saw fear in the eyes of beings who had never known defeat. The galaxy was under new management, and resistance was becoming futile. The age of the hegemony was ending, and the age of humanity had already begun. 6 months after declaring war on humanity, the surviving leaders of the galactic hegemony sat in the same council chamber where they had once decided to destroy Earth. Now they waited in shackles while reviewed the terms of their surrender. The room looked different now. The dark, intimidating atmosphere had been replaced with bright lighting and comfortable furniture. Human engineers had removed the weapons and surveillance equipment that had made the chamber feel like a prison. Now it felt like what it was supposed to be, a place for civilized discussion. Stood before the broken council with the same calm expression she had worn during their first meeting. But now, everyone in the room understood the strength behind that peaceful facade. The Terran Federation accepts the unconditional surrender of the galactic hegemony, she announced formally. Effective immediately, all hegemony military forces will be disbanded. All weapons of mass destruction will be turned over to Federation control. All conquered territories will be granted independence under Federation protection. Chancellor's crystal body had dimmed to a pale gray. 6 months of defeat had broken something inside him that had once burned with the fire of conquest. "What happens to us?" he asked quietly. Consulted her data pad. "You will stand trial for crimes against sentient life. The Federation believes in justice, not revenge. If you cooperate with the transition and provide information about other threats to galactic peace, your sentences will be reduced. And our people?" "Your people will be free for the first time in centuries," replied. "Free to choose their own governments, their own laws, their own destinies. The Federation will provide protection and assistance, but we won't rule them." The representative spoke up, his metal voice uncertain. "Why? You have the power to control everything now. Why let us govern ourselves?" Smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a warm smile instead of a dangerous one. "Because that's not who we are." Around the galaxy, the transformation was already beginning. On worlds that had known only military rule for thousands of years, humans were helping establish democratic governments. Species that had been enemies for generations were learning to cooperate under Federation guidance. Admiral stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting the former capital world. Below him, he could see construction ships building hospitals and schools where weapon factories had once stood. Alien children who had been taught that violence was the only way to solve problems were learning about art, science, and peaceful cooperation. "Status report from Sector 7, his communications officer announced. They have completed their disarmament process. They're requesting Federation assistance with converting their military research facilities to medical development." Nodded approvingly. They had been some of the most advanced scientists in the galaxy, but they had been forced to use their knowledge to create weapons. Now they could focus on healing instead of harming. Dr. Sarah visited the former hegemony capital as part of the reconstruction team. She walked through streets where alien citizens went about their daily lives without fear for the first time in generations. Human peacekeepers worked alongside local security forces to maintain order. "It's remarkable," said her alien guide, a young named. 6 months ago, my people lived in terror of our own government. Now children play in the streets. Families plan for the future. We have hope." Sarah smiled. "That's what freedom looks like." "Will humans always protect us?" asked. "The Federation will protect anyone who needs protection," Sarah replied. "But the goal is to help you become strong enough to protect yourselves. We want partners, not subjects." The economic transformation was just as dramatic as the political one. Trade routes that had been controlled by military force were now open to everyone. Technology that had been kept secret by the hegemony was being shared freely. Species that had been prevented from developing their potential were finally free to innovate and grow. Stood before the new Galactic Council, which now included representatives from every species in known space. The chamber was bright and welcoming, with delegates sitting as equals rather than conquerors and conquered. 6 months ago, she began, this galaxy was ruled by fear. Stronger species dominated weaker ones. Military might determined political power. Entire civilizations lived in terror of those who claimed superiority. She looked around the room at representatives from dozens of species, all of them free to speak their minds for the first time in their lives. Today, we begin a new age, an age where strength is used to protect rather than dominate, where diversity is celebrated rather than suppressed, where cooperation replaces conquest. The representative raised a tentacle to speak. Ambassador, what guarantees do we have that humanity won't become the same kind of oppressor that the hegemony was? It was a fair question, and had been expecting it. You have the guarantee of our history, she replied. For 50 years, we had the power to conquer and chose not to. We could have ruled through fear, but instead we chose to earn respect. We could have destroyed your fleets completely, but instead we captured them and treated survivors with dignity. But power corrupts, the delegate observed. How do we know you won't change? Gestured to the chamber around them. Because we're giving you the tools to stop us if we do. This council has the power to regulate Federation actions. You have access to our military technology. You're learning our strategies and tactics. If humanity ever becomes a threat to galactic peace, you'll be able to defend yourselves. Admiral watched the proceedings from the observation gallery. In his long military career, he had seen the aftermath of many wars. Usually, the victors imposed their will on the defeated and called it peace. What humanity was doing was different. They were building something new. Sir, his aide whispered, the final casualty reports are in. Reviewed the data pad she handed him. Despite the galaxy-wide conflict, total casualties had been surprisingly low. Humanity's precision warfare had minimized loss of life on both sides. More importantly, civilian casualties were almost zero. Make sure these numbers are made public, said. I want every species in the galaxy to understand that we kept our promises. We fought only against those who threatened peace. The trials of former hegemony leaders proceeded fairly but firmly. Each was given legal representation and the chance to present their defense. Some showed genuine remorse for their actions and received reduced sentences. Others remained defiant and faced the full consequences of their crimes. Chancellor surprised everyone by becoming one of the most cooperative defendants. He provided detailed information about hidden weapon stockpiles and secret military facilities that could have posed future threats. Why are you helping us? Asked during one of their meetings. His crystal form flickered weakly. Because I finally understand what we could have been. For thousands of years, we used our strength to create fear. You use yours to create hope. I want to be part of building something better than what we destroyed. The transformation wasn't without challenges. Some species tried to take advantage of the new freedom to settle old grievances. Criminal organizations attempted to fill the power vacuum left by the hegemony's collapse. Small groups of former military leaders tried to start rebellions. Each challenge was met with swift but measured response. Federation forces intervened to stop violence, while Federation diplomats worked to address the underlying causes of conflict. The message was consistent. The galaxy's new guardians would maintain peace, but they would do it fairly. A year after the war ended, returned to Earth for a ceremony honoring those who had fallen during the conflict. She stood before a memorial wall bearing the names of every human who had died in the fighting. 17 names from the Battle of Earth, and fewer than 200 more from the entire galactic campaign. They died so that billions could live in freedom, she said to the assembled crowd. They gave their lives not for conquest, but for the principle that all sentient beings deserve to live without fear. President Martinez of Earth joined her at the podium. The Terran Federation was born from humanity's refusal to let tyranny go unchallenged. Today, we commit ourselves to ensuring that no species will ever again have to choose between submission and destruction. In the months that followed, the galaxy continued to change. Former enemies became allies. Technologies developed for war were converted to peaceful purposes. Children of different species played together on worlds where their ancestors had been mortal enemies. Often thought about that moment in the Hegemony Council chamber when she had smiled and said, "It's time." She had been waiting for 50 years to see if humanity could become what it claimed to be, a force for good in a universe that had known too much evil. Now she knew. The galaxy was finally at peace, not because one species had conquered all the others, but because one species had chosen to protect all the others. Humanity had become what the galaxy needed most, not its rulers but its guardians, and under that protection, every species could finally reach for the stars in freedom. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it would last as long as Earth's children remembered that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to protect.